The Houston Texans have pulled off something that is without much precedent in the NFL draft. At number 2, they picked the quarterback that may have been the number 1 quarterback on their board in C.J. Stroud, as well as, at number 3, drafting what was widely considered to be the best player in the entire draft in Alabama edge Will Anderson Jr., though many others would have said that Jalen Carter was the best player in this draft. Largely, Jalen Carter and Will Anderson were in competition for who would be considered the number 1 overall player in the draft, and Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud were in competition for who would be the first quarterback, meaning that in picks 2 and 3, the Houston Texans have completely transformed both sides of the football for their squad in the 2023 season. Real quick, guys, the NFL Draft is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, so if you were a fan of the NFL Draft, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. There is a ton more NFL Draft content to come from this channel, and if you want to help me out with what I'm doing here, if you hit the like button, it tells YouTube to share this video with other draft fans, other NFL fans, other football fanatics, and I would greatly appreciate that. Now, let's get back into it. Now, whereas I have been on record saying that I don't necessarily believe in any of the quarterbacks in this draft all that much, it bears to be said that C.J. Stroud immediately becomes the best quarterback on the Texans roster. Tools-wise, just off the top of my head, C.J. Stroud might be the second most talented quarterback to ever wear a Texans jersey. All of this said, I am not positive he is going to be the Week 1 Snap 1 starter, only because I think the Texans are going to play the rigmarole of trying not to smash their young quarterback under the weight of what might be another disappointing season for the Texans. That said, if the Texans do believe that they are closer to being the Week 15 team that lost to the Chiefs by 6 points in overtime, the Chiefs being the eventual Super Bowl champions, if they believe they're closer to that team in reality than they are to being the team that went 3-13-1, if they think they are a team that is much closer to competing than they showed last season, maybe they do go Week 1 Snap 1 C.J. Stroud under center. Because if you believe in C.J. Stroud's upside, neither Davis Mills nor Kyle Allen hold a candle to what it is the young man can be in the NFL, and probably what that young man will be from Snap 1 in the NFL. What type of rapport is he able to build with the Texans' wide receivers and tight ends in camp? That might be telling. When you take a step back and look at it, the Texans passed for 3,534 yards between those two quarterbacks last year. Does C.J. Stroud have 3,534 yards in him as a rookie? If the answer is yes, and you believe in the kid's makeup, there's absolutely no reason to leave him on the sideline. If C.J. Stroud is able to replicate or surpass, those passing numbers, how many wins is that worth for this Texans squad? Because again, in Week 14, they lost to the Dallas Cowboys by the score of 27-23, very close loss. In Week 15, they lost to the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in overtime, 30-24. In Week 16, they beat the Tennessee Titans. In Week 17, they lost pretty badly to the Jaguars, but the Jaguars were they won a playoff game last season, so there's something to be said for that. And in Week 18, they beat the Colts. And that string of victories and moral victories came at the tail end of a season that was otherwise fairly disastrous. Which begs the question, what type of impact do you believe Will Anderson, the 6'4", 243-pound edge out of Alabama, can make on the defensive side of the ball? Can he be a J.J. Watt type of impact player for the defense? Personally, I don't believe you can project that type of thing. I don't think if you could project that type of thing, and he was J.J. Watt, absolutely he would have been the number 1 player off the board regardless of whether or not someone needed a quarterback. Personally, I think he comes into the league and he is automatically a 10-sack type of player But more than that, he's someone on that defensive side of the ball, he's someone on that defensive line that opposing offenses are going to have to game plan specifically for. That is a big deal. Are you able to take someone out of their element? Make them have to play left-handed. The Texans finished tied for 18th in the NFL last season with 38 sacks total. Now, what does that mean? Well, the number one team, the Philadelphia Eagles, had 70 sacks total, but number two was all the way down at 55, the Kansas City Chiefs. So there was a 15-sack gap between number one and number two. However, the gap between the Texans at 18th and the Kansas City Chiefs at number two is only 17 total sacks. So if Anderson were, in theory, to be able to just dollop on 10 more sacks to last year's total and bring the Texans to 48 sacks as opposed to 38, they would be tied in the NFL for 5th place for total sacks. That's not half bad. That's really good. So a new starting quarterback that is an upgrade over anything that the Texans had last season, and a new starting edge player who is going to be maybe a premier player in the NFL at his position. Are just those two picks worth what? 3 wins, 4 wins, maybe 5? Can the Houston Texans turn into an 8-win team simply with their first-round players? Now, what you hear from NFL organizations is that you aim to get 3 starters per draft. Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud are both starters. The Texans still have 10 picks left in this draft. Round 3, pick 65, that can absolutely be a starter. Round 3, pick 73, again, can absolutely be a starter. Round 4, picks 104 and 105, basically top 100 picks. Top 100 picks have a decent shot at being starters. Round 5, pick 161. Round 6, pick 188. Round 6, pick 201. Round 6, pick 203. Round 7, pick 230. And round 7, pick 259. I believe that is Mr. Irrelevant. So with essentially 4 more top 100 picks and 10 picks total, those 4 picks between now and pick 105 can absolutely be starting level players. Especially in a draft like this, I think there is a glut of talent in the second, third round type range. Obviously, depending on who falls, where there are rushes, where there are runs on players, runs on positions, things like that. And it's obviously still possible that the Texans put something together to move up into round 2. But just like that, with the top 2 players, 2 of the top 3 players in the draft, the Texans may have awarded themselves a much better looking record this year with plenty of ammo still to go. Will they be able to add one of those 3rd, 4th round type wide receivers that is a big body who could provide a target, a steady target for C.J. Stroud? This is a deep edge class. It's possible they add there as well. Not to mention the cornerbacks that seem to be deep in this draft as well. Lots of physical freaks at the cornerback position in this NFL draft. And it seems to me that if C.J. Stroud was always the game plan, was always the person they were going to pick at number 2, assuming that he got past pick number 1, that might be why we saw them trade away Brandon Cooks. Now, that might seem counterintuitive, but if they are opting instead to give their young quarterback bigger targets that are easier to hit on an NFL field, bringing in tight end Dalton Schultz makes sense. Bringing in 6', 195-pound crafty veteran Robert Woods makes sense. And for a rookie quarterback, that Robert Woods acquisition may in fact be a little bit underrated. Robert Woods is going to be someone who is going to find a way to get open, he's going to make the catch, and he's going to get first downs for your NFL football team. Now, That is all I have for these two draft picks. Like I say, the NFL draft is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, so if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more. There is a lot more NFL draft content to come in future days, and I hope to have you back for the next one.